Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Myra. And if you're returning, thank you so much and welcome back. So let's get started on today's projects. My first project today is a 3-paneled wall divider, and it's just a little tabletop version. I thrifted it a really long time ago, so I painted it black to cover up the design, and then I go back and I paint it with Rust-Oleum Blush Pink. And it takes several coats, and I paint the front and the back. My husband cut 3 pieces of wood, it's just thin wood, to go inside of those panels, and I painted them white. And then I Mod Podged onto those panels some new Decoupage Central textured paper, and I will make sure to share that in the description box below. It's a beautiful white textured paper, and the design is raised up daisies. It is absolutely beautiful. So on top of that, I'm going to use some resin molds with the IOD mold called He Loves Me. Now, if you have not used fast casting resin before, you mix up equal parts of part A and B, and you need to be ready to stir it and be ready to pour it right away because it really does set up really fast. And also with resin, you don't need to put anything into the molds to prepare it for that resin. You can just pour it straight in. And the difference between that and clay is if you use air dry clay, you're going to need to put cornstarch into that mold to make those molds release easier. But with resin, that is not necessary. And then I'm just using that little popsicle stick to push that resin out to the edges of these molds, because on this particular one that I'm doing right now, I really don't have enough to fill it up all the way, so that's why I'm trying to push that resin out to the very edges. And this is what they look like when you pop them out, and they are beautiful, and they are also permanent. And with this new resin that I've started using, they actually come out just so much whiter than the amazing casting resin that I used to get at Hobby Lobby. Now, because I'm going to be putting them on the white texture paper, I decide to paint them with the Rust-Oleum Blush Pink. And then I will go back and I will paint the center of those little daisies with just a white paint. And because these molds are made out of resin, when I attach them to the panels, I use hot glue. Normally, I put molds on with Titebond Thick and Quick, but because these are going to lap over, if I only used Titebond glue, then they would slide around just a little bit in the beginning, and I don't want them to. So that's why I'm using hot glue on these particular ones. So on both side panels, I use the same flowers and I overlap them in the same manner. And then in the middle section, I add just a few more flowers. And I love the way it turned out. And this is something I'm actually going to be using in my craft room. So what do you think? Now this textured wallpaper comes in a really large sheet, and you can get a lot of uses out of just this one sheet. And I will be using it in another project in just a minute. But look at that beautiful design. I love that raised texture on this paper. And Decoupage Central actually has several different texture papers that have come out lately, and they are so pretty. So make sure to look for those on the website. So if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel and become part of our family. So let's keep going. My next project is a bottle that somebody gave me, and I started out by painting it with Dixie Belle Slick Stick, which is a white paint, and it just helps things to adhere better to the bottle. I'm going back again with the Rust-Oleum Blush Pink, and I'm going to be painting the top and the bottom, but I'm going to leave that middle section white. And there's a little raised up area at the top and at the bottom, so it makes it really easy to paint those clean lines. And I just painted all the way up the neck of the bottle. And if you are not a fan of pink, Just think how pretty this textured paper would look with yellow, or maybe even a light blue with the little yellow petals. I just think that would be so pretty. Now, I do go back later and paint the base of that bottle, but until I get finished, I don't paint it because I don't want it to get scratched up at all. This is actually just a little strip that I had left over of this textured paper, so I just line it up with how much I need to wrap around the front and the back of the bottle and cut that. And then once I lay it down, I just kind of fold it up to where it lines up with that bottom little strip of pink, and then I cut that as well. And I'm going to be adding it to the bottle with just some Mod Podge. Now, even though this paper is thicker than most rice papers, you don't have to use a lot of extra Mod Podge to put it on. Now, the molds that I'm going to be putting on my bottle, I'm actually going to be making them with air dry clay this time. So I put cornstarch in my molds, and then I use DOS air dry clay. And I get this at Hobby Lobby. And the reason I use this kind is because if you've watched my channel before, you know that I use a lot of molds. And it is just cheaper if I get it at Hobby Lobby because I always buy it on the weeks that it's on sale. So on the IOD molds, you're going to push it into the mold, and with your thumb, you just press it all the way to the edges. And the IOD molds have a little micro ram, so that makes it easy to get it right up there to the edges. And then I go back with an old gift card and smooth it out. Now on these particular molds, I'm going to be putting them on with Tight Bond Thick and Quick. So I start out with the one that I want at the bottom, and then I'm going to add the two other ones on top of that and layer them. And with clay, it's a little bit easier if you want to overlap them, because when I put the second and the third one on, I just gently sort of press it onto the one below it without messing up any of the detail. But if I used resin, especially on this bottle, they would not adhere to the bottle well, and you would see gaps behind those molds. And you just gently press them down so that you don't mess up any of the detail. And then that's just a little backside of a paintbrush that I just kind of will push it together super easy so it molds together really well. And then I just go back after that Mod Podge is dry and trim that extra part off at the back. Now I want to finish off the edges between the pink and the white. So I'm going to be making some clay molds made from the IOD mold called Classic Elements. And once again, you just press it in and then smooth it out. And I put it on with Tight Bond Thick and Quick. Now I'm going to be putting those molds on the back side as well, but I let it set up for a couple days before I put the ones on the back side, just because if I did it right away and I laid it over on the top, then it would smush the molds at the very beginning. So I just kind of wait a couple days to finish it off. So I like to paint my molds, the ones with clay, about 10 to 15 minutes after I put them on, and it helps reduce cracking a lot. So I'm painting the petals with that Rust-Oleum blush pink, and then I go back and paint the center of them white. So if you'll notice that clay or those molds have set up really well on the front, and then that way I don't feel like they're going to be smushed. So when I add these little strips of clay, you'll see me, I'm just going to kind of cut it off where it meets, the little edges meet, and then I just really gently push it together so you don't see any gaps in it. And I paint those pink as well, and then I go back with just some little ribbons. I put like a little strip of pearls that you can get from Hobby Lobby and some eyelash yarn and just some little scraps of lace, and tie a little shabby bow up at the top. And then I found these little dried florals off of Amazon. So what do you think? I think it is just lovely. It's so pretty and it's so dainty. So my last project with just the mold is actually a crate that I used in one of my recent videos. So I decided that I would just paint over it with the Rust-Oleum Blush Pink, but I leave the inside white, and I make sure that those little edges of those slats, I don't paint in between it pink. I'll leave those paint white as well. So I am just painting the sides and those slats with the Rust-Oleum Blush Pink. And I'm going to add some more of the IOD molds that I made out of resin onto this, but this time I paint the petals white. And I'll be painting the center of those little florals with pink. And when I paint those center of the flowers pink, I sort of fan out that pink more onto the petals, and it just gives it a really pretty effect before I add them to the crate. And then when I do add these to the crate, I add them on with Titebond Thick and Quick, and I just lay it off to the side and let that glue set up before I turn it right side up. So what do you think of these 3 coordinating pieces that I'll be using back in my craft room? Now look at this textured paper. Isn't this so pretty? It's sort of a blue, and it has some just different splashes of orange on it and pink on it. It's so pretty, and I will share that in the description box below. And once again, this comes in a really large piece, so you can use it for a lot of different projects. So I'm just adding it onto a wood tag with some Mod Podge. And then this is just a little piece of cellophane wrap that I kind of smooth it out with. And this is a resin mold that I already had made up from the IOD mold called Hello Pumpkin that came out last fall. And then I already has some resin molds made up from the IOD Oak Leaves and Acorn that came out this summer. So this time I'm painting them with Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. And I'm going to put this little pumpkin down at the bottom, and then I'm going to be putting on these 3 different leaves with Titebond Thick and Quick. I'm going to put a label up at the top, and this is a resin mold that comes from the IOD Conservatory mold. And I also paint this with Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. And I like to use Rust-Oleum for those good basic colors that you might need when you like to use chalk paint. Once those are all dry, I actually go back with some Waverly Antique Stain, because this time I want the stain to be just a little bit darker. So I'm going to be brushing it onto the little stem of the pumpkin. And on this pumpkin, there's some detail. So I just dry brush that over the details. And then I kind of go down into the little ridges of the pumpkin. And then I go back down at the bottom on those leaves, and I use that Waverly Antique Stain to just add that extra detail to those different molds. And then also up at the top on the conservatory label, there's some little details on that. So I use that Waverly Antique Stain on those. And then once you get it all on, then you can use a little baby wipe to wipe back some of that stain in case it's just a little bit too dark. So on that label, I am actually stamping out the French word for pumpkin. And this comes from the Apothecary Labels stamp set. And I actually just stamp out 1 letter at a time because I want the letters to be close together. And I'm using IOD black ink. I'm stamping on a white napkin because napkins are really easy to stamp onto and then add to a project, and it becomes sort of translucent when you put it over a mold. And then I don't need this particular little napkin to be torn because I don't want it to tear any of those words that I've just stamped on it, so I just cut it off. And then I just use some Mod Podge to put it on. And then I just very gently put Mod Podge over the top to make sure that I don't have any little wrinkles in that napkin. And then I forgot to film this, but I just had some little pieces of script writing that I think actually came from a Dollar Tree transfer, and I just added a little bit here and there on this particular little tag. And then I took some ribbon that I got from burlapfabric.com, and I just tied a little knot in it. And I just think it turned out so pretty. And this can be a little shelf sitter, or you could hang it from maybe a doorknob, or just wherever, is just someplace small that you can hang a little tag. So what do you think? So friends, we are at the end of the video today. In the comments below, make sure and tell me what is your favorite project that I made today. I definitely cannot pick a favorite because I do love all of them. And the summer is winding down. I hope you've had a great summer and you've been able to rest and relax as we get ready for school to start back and for, the busy fall and winter season that we're fixing to come into. So if you're wanting some fall projects, make sure to stick around because I've got some beautiful projects coming up and I can't wait to share them with you. And if you're wanting any of this texture paper or any IOD products, you can go to the link to Decoupage Central in the description box below and get all the supplies you need to make any of these projects or any other projects you've got coming up. So once again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and become part of our family. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.